Welcome, my friend. You found your way to the Sleepy Scientist Stories, a quiet corner of the internet where curiosity moves at a gentle pace and the stars above are always within reach. I'm so glad you're here. Before we set off on tonight's journey, may I ask, where in the world are you watching from? I always find it fascinating to imagine this little community stretching across continents, connected by a shared moment under the same sky. If you're new here, I'd be grateful if you could give the video a like and consider subscribing so you can join us again for more gentle explorations of the universe. And if you'd like to know the moment our next Sleepy Science adventure drifts into your feed, you can tap the little notification bell. To those who have already subscribed, thank you for being part of this strange and wonderful experiment in bedtime science. Now, I do hope this video isn't too interesting and ends up keeping you awake. If it does, at least you'll drift off with a few more facts in your mind than you had when you pressed play. Tonight, we're embarking on a journey through evolution's most fascinating arms race, the eternal dance between predator and prey. We'll explore whether nature could ever craft the perfect hunter, a creature so exquisitely designed for killing that no prey could escape its grasp. Along the way, we'll meet some remarkable beings that have pushed the boundaries of what it means to be a predator, and we might discover that the answer to our question is closer than we think. You walk through a museum of natural history on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, past towering dinosaur skeletons and cases filled with glittering minerals, when you stop before a peculiar exhibit tucked away in a corner. It's labelled The Perfect Predator, but the display case is completely empty. A small placard reads, "This space reserved for a creature that has never existed." Or has it? You find yourself staring at that empty space, wondering what such a being would look like, how it would move through the world, how it would hunt. To understand what makes a predator perfect, you need to think about hunting as one of the most complex problems evolution has been trying to solve for over 500 million years. Every successful hunt, whether it's a spider catching a fly or a pack of wolves bringing down an elk, requires the same fundamental steps: detection, pursuit, capture, and consumption. Each step presents its own unique challenges, and nature has found countless creative solutions to each one. Consider detection first. You might assume that having the sharpest eyes would be enough, but perfect detection goes far beyond what you can see. A truly perfect predator would need to sense prey across multiple spectrums of reality, heat signatures radiating from warm-blooded creatures, electrical fields generated by the tiniest muscle contractions, vibrations traveling through water or air like invisible announcements, chemical traces left. Behind that, create highways of scent completely hidden from our perception. Think about it this way. If you were trying to design the ultimate detection system, you wouldn't rely on just one sense. You'd want radar, sonar, infrared imaging, chemical analysis, and electromagnetic field detection all working together. That's exactly what evolution has been experimenting with, piece by piece, species by species, for hundreds of millions of years. The pursuit phase demands an entirely different set of perfections. Speed seems obvious. Catch the fast things by being faster. But speed alone isn't nearly enough. You need acceleration that can outmatch any head start, maneuverability that can follow every twist and turn, and endurance that outlasts any desperate escape attempt. If cheetahs were perfect predators, gazelles would have gone extinct millions of years ago. Instead, the cheetah's incredible 70-mile-per-hour sprints are perfectly matched by the gazelle's ability to zigzag, leap unpredictably, and crucially, outlast the cat's brief burst of energy. Here's where the engineering becomes fascinating. The cheetah represents one solution to the speed problem: sacrifice everything for acceleration and top speed. Its lightweight build, flexible spine, and specialized claws give it unmatched straight-line performance, but that same lightweight frame makes it vulnerable to larger predators. Lions and hyenas routinely steal cheetah kills, forcing the spotted cat to hunt during daylight hours when bigger competitors are resting. The cheetah traded power and defensive capability for pure speed, creating a specialist that excels in specific conditions but struggles in others. Capture requires yet another completely different toolkit. The perfect predator would need appendages that could grasp like a primate, pierce like a wasp, crush like a crocodile, or trap like a spider's web, all with absolute reliability. No prey should slip away once contact is made, and the mechanism needs to work whether the target is smaller than a grain of rice or larger than a school bus. Consider how a trapdoor spider solves this problem. It creates a hinged door in the ground, perfectly camouflaged, and waits with inhuman patience for vibrations that signal passing prey. When something suitable walks over the trap, the spider explodes upward in a movement so fast your eyes couldn't follow it, grabs the victim, and disappears back underground in less than 1/10 of a second. The entire capture sequence is over before the prey even realizes it's in danger. But then comes consumption, the ability to efficiently extract energy from captured prey while remaining alert for the next opportunity or potential threats. This is where many predators face their greatest vulnerability. A lion feeding on a gazelle is essentially defenseless, focused entirely on the meal and unable to respond quickly to threats. The perfect predator would need to solve this problem too. Now here's where the concept of perfection becomes truly complex, almost paradoxical. A predator perfectly adapted to hunting small, quick mammals would be terrible at catching slow, heavily armored creatures. Evolution doesn't typically create universal solutions. It creates specialists that excel in narrow niches. The long, thin beak of a hummingbird is perfect for reaching nectar in tubular flowers, but useless for cracking seeds. The massive jaws of a saltwater crocodile can crush bones, but couldn't catch a flying insect. The more you think about it, the more you realize that a perfect predator would need to be a master of contradictions. It would need to be powerful enough to overcome large, strong prey, yet efficient enough not to waste energy on smaller targets. It would need to be fast enough to catch anything that runs, yet patient enough to wait for the perfect opportunity. It would need to be specialized enough to excel in specific situations, yet adaptable enough to hunt successfully in completely different environments. If our sun were the size of a basketball, the nearest star would be about 6,000 miles away. The scale of the challenge facing a perfect predator is similarly vast. It would need to excel in environments as different as deep ocean trenches and mountain peaks, in conditions ranging from Arctic cold that would freeze your breath in seconds to desert heat that could kill you in hours. Perhaps most intriguingly, a perfect predator would need something approaching perfect information. It would have to predict not just where its prey is right now, but where it will be in the next few seconds, what it will do when it realizes it's being hunted, and how it will react to different approach strategies. This kind of cognitive capability pushes us beyond simple physical adaptations into the realm of intelligence, strategy, and even something like culture. You could spend hours in that museum examining every predator on display, and you'd start to notice something curious. Each one represents a different approach to the same fundamental challenge. The great white shark with its incredible bite force and electroreception, the dragonfly with its mathematical precision and compound eyes, the polar bear with its patient hunting strategy and massive strength, each one perfect in its own narrow way, but none achieving true universal perfection. The question that emerges from that empty display case isn't really whether evolution could create such a creature. The laws of physics and biology suggest it's theoretically possible. The real question is whether such a creature could exist without destroying the very ecosystems that sustain it. Perfect predation might be an evolutionary dead end, too successful for its own good. As you walk away from that empty exhibit, you might find yourself wondering if you've been looking in the wrong place entirely. Perhaps the perfect predator isn't hiding in some remote corner of the natural world. Perhaps it's been right in front of us all along, and we've simply been too close to see it clearly. Next, we'll explore how every hunt is really a mathematical calculation, and how the most successful predators are essentially biological computers, solving equations that would challenge our most sophisticated machines. You sit by a calm lake at dawn, watching a great blue heron standing motionless at the water's edge like a statue carved from patience itself. For 23 minutes it hasn't moved so much as a feather. The only signs of life are the occasional blink and the subtle adjustment of its yellow eyes, tracking something beneath the surface. Then, in a movement so quick your brain can barely process it, the heron's head darts into the water with surgical precision and emerges with a fish writhing in its beak. You've just witnessed one of nature's most sophisticated mathematical calculations performed in real time. Hunting, at its core, is applied mathematics. Every successful predator is constantly solving complex equations involving trajectory, velocity, probability, and energy expenditure. That heron didn't just randomly stab at the water hoping to get lucky. It calculated the refraction of light, bending the fish's apparent position, predicted the fish's movement pattern based on subtle behavioral cues, compensated for the resistance of water slowing its strike, and executed the attack with millisecond precision. All of this happened in a brain roughly the size of a walnut. Let's consider the mathematics that a dragonfly performs during every single hunt. These remarkable insects have a hunting success rate of about 95%, making them statistically the most successful predators on Earth. Your local baseball team would kill for a batting average like that, but dragonflies don't achieve this incredible success through brute force or exceptional speed alone. Instead, they're essentially flying supercomputers with gossamer wings. When a dragonfly spots potential prey, let's say a mosquito buzzing along about 6 feet away, it doesn't simply chase after where the mosquito currently is. That would be like trying to catch a bus by running to where you saw it 5 minutes ago. Instead, the dragonfly's brain, smaller than the head of a pin, processes the mosquito's current speed, direction, and flight pattern, then plots an intercept course that will bring both insects to the same point in space at precisely the same moment. If you could somehow watch this calculation happen in slow motion, you'd see the dragonfly adjust its flight path continuously, making tiny corrections as the mosquito changes direction or speed. It's performing the same type of mathematical prediction that military pilots use to intercept enemy aircraft, except the dragonfly does it instinctively, hundreds of times per day, with a brain that weighs less than a grain of sand. But here's where the mathematics become even more fascinating. The dragonfly must also calculate whether the hunt is worth the energy expenditure. A mosquito might provide 30 units of energy when consumed, but if catching it requires 35 units of energy in flight, the hunt becomes a net loss. The dragonfly's brain performs this cost-benefit analysis in real time, choosing targets that maximize its survival advantage while rejecting those that would leave it worse off than before. Larger prey might justify more effort and risk. A fat fly could provide 200 units of energy, making it worth a longer chase or a more complex intercept maneuver. But larger prey also means larger risk, more chance of injury, more energy spent if the hunt fails, more time exposed to potential threats. The dragonfly weighs all these variables continuously, like a day trader calculating risk and reward in a market that changes every second. Now imagine you could somehow observe the mathematical complexity when hunting becomes a group effort. Watch a pack of wolves pursuing elk across a mountain meadow, and you're witnessing calculations that would challenge a room full of mathematicians. Each wolf must calculate not only its own optimal position and timing, but also predict the movements of its packmates and coordinate its actions accordingly. The lead wolf might determine that driving the elk herd toward a particular ravine will create a bottleneck where other pack members can position themselves for maximum effectiveness. Meanwhile, each elk is running its own calculations, trying to find the path of least resistance while staying close enough to the herd for protection, but not so close that it gets trampled. It's like watching a real-time strategy game played out with life or death stakes, where every player is simultaneously calculating dozens of variables. Consider what happens when hunting becomes three-dimensional. An orca hunting seals near an ice floe must calculate not just horizontal movement, but also depth, buoyancy, water resistance, and the complex physics of wave generation. The whale needs to create a wave of precisely the right size and timing to wash its prey off the ice. Too small, and the seal stays put. Too large, and the wave might push the seal to safety on the far side of the flow. The mathematics involved are staggering. The orca must calculate the relationship between its swimming speed, body size, water displacement, and the resulting wave characteristics. It needs to factor in the distance to the ice flow, the depth of water beneath it, the size and weight of the target seal, and even the texture of the ice surface. All of this happens in the span of a few seconds, performed by a brain that evolved to solve exactly these kinds of problems. If you scaled up the dragonfly's brain to the size of a human brain, keeping the same processing power per unit of mass, It would be capable of calculations that would make our most powerful computers look like pocket calculators. The dragonfly processes visual information from roughly 30,000 individual lenses in its compound eyes, tracks multiple moving targets simultaneously, and executes precision flight maneuvers that would be impossible for any human pilot. Perhaps most remarkably, some predators have learned to incorporate tools into their mathematical equations. A sea otter floating on its back, using a rock to crack open a sea urchin, has calculated the optimal angle and force required to break the shell without damaging the meat inside or wasting energy on unnecessary impacts. The otter has essentially become a biological engineer, incorporating external objects into its hunting mathematics. But what would the mathematics of a perfect predator look like? Such a creature would need to simultaneously optimize for multiple variables across different types of prey and environments. It would need to calculate not just immediate costs and benefits, but long-term strategic advantages. It would need predictive models sophisticated enough to anticipate prey behavior. Several moves ahead, like a chess grandmaster planning an entire game while the opponent is still making their opening move. The mathematical perfection we're imagining would extend beyond individual hunts to understanding population dynamics. The perfect predator would need to calculate how its hunting pressure affects prey populations over time, ensuring it never hunts its food sources toward extinction. It would need to balance immediate nutritional needs against future food availability, showing mathematical restraint when prey populations are stressed and capitalizing strategically when populations are thriving. The scale of these calculations is almost absurd. If our entire solar system were compressed to the size of a grain of sand, the nearest star system would still be about 4 inches away. The mathematical complexity that even simple predators manage routinely operates on scales of precision that we're only beginning to appreciate. As you watch that heron finally lift off from the lake, fish still writhing in its beak, you might marvel at the elegant mathematical solution it represents to an incredibly complex problem. But you might also wonder what kind of mathematical genius a truly perfect predator would need to be, and whether such computational power might require senses far beyond anything evolution has produced so far. Next, we'll explore the extraordinary sensory innovations that have emerged from millions of years of evolutionary arms races, and discover detection capabilities that seem to border on the supernatural. You walk through a dense forest on a moonless night, relying entirely on your phone's flashlight to illuminate the narrow path ahead. Every few steps, you pause to listen for sounds in the darkness, straining your ears to distinguish between the innocent rustle of wind in leaves and the potentially concerning movement of something more substantial. Your night vision is essentially useless. Your hearing picks up only the most obvious sounds, and you have no ability whatsoever to detect heat, electrical fields, or chemical traces. You're experiencing just a tiny fraction of the sensory limitations that have driven evolution's most extraordinary innovations in detection technology over the past 500 million years. The arms race between predator senses and prey defenses has produced some of the most remarkable biological innovations our planet has ever seen. To understand what perfect predation might look like, we need to explore the current champions of sensory perception and imagine how far these capabilities could theoretically be pushed before running into the fundamental laws of physics. Let's start with vision, since it's the sense you rely on most heavily throughout your daily life. You might think your eyes are pretty sophisticated. They can distinguish millions of colors, track fast-moving objects, and adjust rapidly to different lighting conditions. But compared to what evolution has achieved elsewhere, human vision is like a black and white television in an age of ultra-high definition displays. The mantis shrimp possesses what might be the most complex visual system in the animal kingdom, where you have 3 types of color receptors in your eyes, allowing you to see the familiar spectrum from red through violet. Mantis shrimp have between 12 and 16 different types. If you could somehow see the world through mantis shrimp eyes, colors would exist that don't even have names in human languages. They can see ultraviolet light that reveals patterns on flowers and other creatures completely invisible to most animals. They can detect circular polarized light, giving them a form of vision that we can barely even conceptualize. But perhaps most remarkably, mantis shrimp eyes can move completely independently of each other. Imagine having eyes that could watch a potential meal with perfect focus, while the other eye simultaneously scanned for threats, additional opportunities, or escape routes. It's like having built-in security cameras with supernatural capabilities, each one gathering different types of information and feeding it all to a brain capable of processing multiple visual streams simultaneously. If our sun were the size of a tennis ball, the nearest star would be roughly 6,000 miles away. The sensory challenges facing predators are similarly vast in scale. Consider echolocation, which is essentially nature's answer to sonar technology. You might think of bats as the masters of this technique, and indeed, some bats can distinguish between wires as thin as human hair using nothing but reflected sound waves. They're essentially flying in a world made of sound, where every surface, every object, every moving creature creates a unique acoustic signature. But dolphins have taken echolocation to even more sophisticated levels that border on the supernatural. A dolphin can echolocate a fish buried completely in sand and determine not just its exact location and size, but potentially even its species and current health status. The returning sound waves carry information about internal structures, tissue density, and organ function, like a biological ultrasound machine, with capabilities that exceed most medical equipment. Some dolphins have been observed using their echolocation in ways that blur the line between sensing and weaponizing. They can focus intense sound beams to stun small fish, making them easier to capture. It's as if they've learned to turn their sensory system into a hunting tool, using the same mechanism for detection and attack. But what about senses that you barely possess at all? Sharks can detect electrical fields as weak as 5/1000th of a volt per centimeter. To put this in perspective that makes the scale comprehensible, a shark could theoretically detect the electrical field generated by a standard AA battery from over 1,000 miles away if the ocean were a perfect conductor. In practical terms, this means sharks can sense the muscle contractions of a fish's gills from considerable distances, even when the fish is completely motionless and perfectly hidden from visual detection. Every time your heart beats, every time any muscle in your body contracts, you're generating electrical fields that a shark could potentially detect. The ampullae of Lorenzini, the organs that give sharks this capability, are so sensitive that they can pick up the bioelectrical fields generated by the gills of a flatfish buried in sand. The shark essentially sees a world overlaid with electrical auras surrounding every living thing. Snakes have evolved heat-sensing organs called pit organs that can detect temperature differences as small as 0.003 degrees Celsius. A rattlesnake hunting in complete darkness can track a mouse by its body heat alone, striking with perfect accuracy at a warm-blooded target it has never actually seen. The snake's brain constructs a thermal image of its environment, essentially giving it heat vision that would make military thermal imaging equipment seem primitive by comparison. The physics involved are remarkable. These pit organs can detect the infrared radiation naturally emitted by warm bodies, but they're sensitive enough to notice the heat signature of a small mouse from several feet away. The snake essentially sees temperature, creating a world where warm-blooded creatures glow like beacons against the cooler background of their environment. Some birds can see magnetic fields using specialized proteins in their eyes that are sensitive to Earth's magnetic field. This magnetic vision helps them navigate during migrations that span thousands of miles. But it also provides information about their immediate environment that we're only beginning to understand. Imagine being able to see the invisible lines of magnetic force that surround our planet, using them like a GPS system that never needs satellite updates and works perfectly underground, underwater, or anywhere else. Now let's imagine combining all these sensory superpowers into a single creature. Our hypothetical perfect predator would have compound eyes capable of seeing across the entire electromagnetic spectrum, from radio waves to gamma rays. It would possess echolocation more sophisticated than any dolphin, heat vision more sensitive than any snake, electroreception more precise than any shark, and magnetic field detection more accurate than any bird. But the real breakthrough wouldn't just be having multiple sensory inputs. The perfect predator would need a brain capable of integrating all this information simultaneously into a coherent, real-time model of its environment. It would see heat signatures overlaid with electrical fields, hear the echolocation signatures of hidden prey while simultaneously tracking magnetic anomalies that might indicate mineral deposits where prey animals gather to drink or feed. Such a creature would essentially possess a form of environmental omniscience within its hunting range. It would be aware of every living thing, every movement, every change in temperature or electrical activity within its sensory sphere. Prey animals would have nowhere to hide, no way to mask their presence from such comprehensive detection capabilities. The sensory arms race that has driven evolution for millions of years would effectively end, because no prey adaptation could hide from such comprehensive awareness. In a world with the perfect predator's senses, the only defenses would be speed, size, protective armor, or perhaps the protection of an even more perfect predator. The scale of sensory processing required is almost incomprehensible. If you tried to build a machine with equivalent capabilities using current technology, it would probably require a supercomputer the size of a building and consume more electricity than a small city. Next, we'll explore how predators translate sensory information into movement, examining the physics of speed and stealth that determine whether detection leads to successful capture. You stand on an African savanna just after sunrise, watching a cheetah about 200 meters away as it begins the hunt that has made it legendary. The spotted cat shifts from a casual trot to full acceleration in what seems like an instant, reaching 60 miles per hour in just 3 seconds. Its spine flexes and extends like a biological spring with each bound, covering 25 feet with every stride, muscles and tendons, working in perfect coordination. But as impressive as this display of speed is, you're also witnessing the fundamental limitation that prevents the cheetah from being a perfect predator. It can only maintain this incredible pace for about 400 meters before overheating forces it to stop completely. The physics of movement presents some of the most interesting constraints and possibilities in our exploration of perfect predation. Speed is obviously crucial for catching prey and avoiding becoming prey yourself, but the relationship between speed, energy, consumption, and body mechanics is far more complex than it might appear when you watch nature documentaries that make everything look effortless. Let's first consider what maximum speed actually looks like in different environments, because the medium you're moving through changes everything. In the air, the peregrine falcon holds the absolute record with diving speeds that can exceed 240 miles per hour. But this isn't level flight speed. It's achieved by converting altitude into velocity, essentially turning the falcon into a living missile that happens to have wings. The falcon's body becomes perfectly streamlined during these dives, its feathers configured to minimize air resistance while specialized nostrils prevent the incredible air pressure from damaging its lungs. If you could somehow scale up a peregrine falcon to the size of a commercial airliner, while maintaining the same power-to-weight ratio, it would be capable of breaking the sound barrier in level flight. The engineering that evolution has packed into a 3-pound bird rivals anything humans have achieved in aerospace design. In water, the black marlin can reach speeds of approximately 80 miles per hour, which might not sound impressive compared to the falcon until you consider that water is nearly 800 times denser than air. Moving through water at high speed requires overcoming massive resistance that increases exponentially with velocity. The marlin's body represents millions of years of evolution optimizing for hydrodynamic efficiency. Its distinctive bill serves dual purposes. It's both a weapon for stunning prey fish and a water-cutting tool that reduces drag by splitting the water flow around the fish's body. The physics are remarkable when you think about them. If you tried to swim at even 10 miles per hour, the water resistance would feel like hitting a brick wall. The marlin manages 8 times that speed by having evolved a body shape that manages water flow with incredible sophistication. On land, the cheetah remains unmatched among large predators, but its speed comes with significant trade-offs that illustrate the fundamental compromises evolution must make. The cat's lightweight build, absolutely necessary for such acceleration, makes it vulnerable to larger predators. Lions and hyenas routinely steal cheetah kills, forcing the spotted cat to hunt during daylight hours when bigger competitors are resting. The cheetah has essentially traded power and endurance for pure speed, creating a specialist hunter that excels in specific conditions but struggles in others. But speed is only one dimension of movement mastery. Consider stealth, which might be even more important than raw velocity for many predators. Some creatures have evolved movement capabilities that seem to defy the basic laws of physics. The snow leopard can leap horizontally up to 50 feet, essentially flying through mountain terrain with impossible grace. Its oversized paws act like biological snowshoes, distributing weight so effectively that it can move across snow that wouldn't support a human child. Owls represent perhaps the pinnacle of stealthy movement. Their wing feathers have evolved specialized structures that break up air turbulence in ways that eliminate sound production entirely. The soft, velvety texture of their flight feathers absorbs sound waves rather than reflecting them. An owl can fly directly over your head at close range, and you would never hear it approach. This silent flight gives them an enormous advantage when hunting prey with acute hearing, like mice and rabbits that depend on sound to detect approaching threats. The engineering behind silent flight is extraordinarily complex. If you examined an owl feather under a microscope, you'd see tiny fringes along the edges that break up airflow, plus a soft upper surface that dampens vibrations. It's like nature invented stealth technology millions of years before humans figured out how to make radar-invisible aircraft. In aquatic environments, some sharks have evolved the ability to breach the surface completely when attacking seals, launching their multi-ton bodies entirely out of the ocean in displays of power that transform them from aquatic predators into briefly aerial ones. Great white sharks achieve this by swimming straight up from depth at speeds exceeding 25 miles per hour, using their momentum to carry them 8 to 10 feet into the air. The physics involved are staggering. Imagine a car-sized animal generating enough upward force to become airborne. Now, imagine what perfect movement would look like. A hypothetical ideal predator would need to excel not just in one environment, but across all of them simultaneously. It would need the cheetah's acceleration, the falcon's diving speed, the marlin's ability to cut through water, and the owl's stealth, all integrated into a single body design that could transition seamlessly between different types of locomotion. The physics of such a creature present fascinating engineering challenges. How do you create a body that can efficiently move through air, water, and across land without compromising performance in any environment? The answer might lie in variable geometry, similar to how some military aircraft can adjust their wing configuration for different flight conditions. Perhaps the perfect predator could alter its body shape dynamically, extending fins for swimming, reconfiguring limbs for running, or adjusting its profile for aerial movement. The energy requirements for such versatility would be enormous. Perfect movement capabilities would demand perfect energy efficiency. The creature would need a metabolism capable of supporting explosive bursts of activity while maintaining the endurance needed for extended pursuits. It would need to solve the fundamental trade-off between power and efficiency that has constrained every predator evolution has produced so far. If our solar system was scaled down so that Earth was the size of a marble, the nearest star would still be about 25 miles away. The challenge of creating perfect movement is similarly vast in scope, requiring solutions to problems that seem almost impossibly complex. But perhaps the most interesting aspect of perfect movement wouldn't be speed or stealth alone, but the ability to predict and control the movement of prey. Some predators have evolved behaviors that manipulate their prey's escape routes with remarkable sophistication. Killer whales coordinate their movements to drive seals toward ice edges where escape becomes impossible. Wolf packs position themselves strategically to funnel prey into ambush positions where their superior numbers provide maximum advantage. A perfect predator might take this concept even further, using its superior movement capabilities not just to catch prey, but to control the entire dynamics of the hunt. It would move in ways that forced prey into predictable patterns, essentially choreographing the encounter to guarantee success while minimizing energy expenditure. The mathematics of coordinated movement become mind-boggling when you consider multiple predators working together. Each individual must calculate not only optimal positioning relative to prey, but also optimal positioning relative to teammates, all while maintaining formation and responding to rapid changes in the tactical situation. As you watch that cheetah finally slow to a trot, sides heaving from its incredible exertion, you might appreciate that even nature's ultimate speed demon is ultimately limited by the fundamental laws of physics and biology. But you might also wonder what those laws would permit if evolution had unlimited time and resources to work with. Next, we'll explore the weapons that evolution has crafted and discover that nature's arsenal makes human military technology look like children's toys. You walk through a medieval weapons exhibit in a castle museum, marveling at the ingenuity humans have put into designing tools for combat over the centuries. There's the morning star with its spiked iron ball, the crossbow with its precise mechanical advantage, the sword with its perfect balance of cutting edge and thrusting point. The craftsmanship is remarkable, representing thousands of years of metallurgy and engineering innovation. But as impressive as these human weapons are, they pale in comparison to the biological arsenal that evolution has been developing for over 500 million years, refining and perfecting weapon systems that make our most advanced military technology look like stone knives and clubs. Natural selection has produced a weapons catalogue that would make any military engineer envious. Every method of dealing damage that humans have ever conceived — piercing, cutting, crushing, poisoning, electrical shock, chemical warfare, even sonic attacks — nature invented first, often with levels of sophistication that we're still trying to understand and replicate in our laboratories. Let's start with perhaps the most famous natural weapon, the great white shark's bite. When a great white closes its jaws around prey, it generates a crushing force of approximately 4,000 pounds per square inch. To put this in perspective that makes the scale comprehensible, that's roughly equivalent to the weight of 3 small cars, concentrated into an area the size of a postage stamp. The shark's teeth are self-sharpening biological blades, constantly being replaced throughout its lifetime at a rate that would bankrupt any human military trying to maintain equivalent equipment. A single shark may go through 30,000 teeth during its lifetime, ensuring its weapons are always at peak effectiveness. But raw crushing power represents just one approach to the weapons problem. The mantis shrimp has evolved what might be the most sophisticated striking mechanism in the animal kingdom, and the physics involved are almost incomprehensible. Its club-like appendages accelerate faster than a bullet leaving a gun barrel, creating cavitation bubbles in the water that collapse with the force of small explosions. The mantis shrimp essentially punches its prey with the power of controlled detonations, stunning or killing victims through sheer mechanical trauma delivered in microseconds. The engineering behind this strike defies easy explanation. The mantis shrimp's clubs are composite structures with multiple layers of materials that have different properties, some flexible to absorb shock, others incredibly hard to deliver impact. This creates a weapon that can generate devastating force while protecting the striker from the tremendous recoil that would otherwise shatter its own limbs. It's biological engineering that rivals anything humans have created, and we've only recently figured out how it works. Moving into chemical warfare, nature has produced toxins of incredible potency and sophistication that make human chemical weapons look crude by comparison. The blue-ringed octopus, despite being only the size of a golf ball, carries enough tetrodotoxin to kill 26 adult humans within minutes. This neurotoxin works by blocking sodium channels in nerve cells, essentially paralyzing the victim's respiratory system while leaving them fully conscious. The octopus doesn't waste this extraordinarily potent weapon. It injects precisely calculated doses to immobilize prey without unnecessary overkill. But perhaps the most sophisticated chemical weapon systems belong to snakes, which have evolved pharmaceutical capabilities that would be the envy of any modern laboratory. Venom composition varies not just between species, but often between individual snakes of the same species. Some species can even adjust their venom chemistry in real time based on the type of prey they're targeting. A rattlesnake hunting small mammals produces a different venom cocktail than when it's defending against a larger threat. It's like having a mobile pharmacy that can customize its products based on immediate tactical requirements. The delivery systems that snakes have evolved rival the precision of the finest medical injection equipment. The fangs of a viper are hollow hypodermic needles, with precisely calculated bore diameters and injection volumes. The angle of fang penetration, the depth of insertion, even the speed of venom delivery, everything is optimized for maximum effectiveness, with minimum waste of precious biological resources. If our solar system were compressed to the size of a basketball, the nearest star would be about 4,000 miles away. The precision required for effective venom delivery operates on similarly vast scales of biological engineering sophistication. Electric weapons represent another fascinating category of natural armament that predates human electrical technology by millions of years. The electric eel can generate discharges of up to 600 volts, enough electrical power to stun a horse or kill a human being. But the eel doesn't just randomly discharge electricity like a broken power line. It has sophisticated control over the intensity, duration, and pattern of its electrical attacks. Low-voltage pulses can be used for navigation and communication, while high-voltage discharges are reserved for hunting and defense. The eel's electrical system is essentially a biological battery composed of thousands of specialized cells called electrocytes. These cells can discharge simultaneously to create coordinated electrical pulses, or in complex sequential patterns that can confuse prey or predators. Some electric fish can even jam the electrical senses of other electric fish, creating a form of biological electronic warfare that disrupts enemy sensory systems. Sound as a weapon might seem unlikely until you consider what sperm whales can accomplish with focused acoustics. These enormous creatures can produce clicks so powerful they can potentially stun or disorient giant squid prey. The whale's massive forehead contains a specialized organ called the spermaceti organ that can focus sound waves like an acoustic lens, creating targeted sonic beams with enough intensity to cause physical damage to soft tissues. The physics involved are remarkable. Sound waves in water can carry tremendous energy, and when focused properly, they become weapons capable of causing internal injuries without any physical contact. It's like having a sonic cannon built into your skull. Now, imagine what perfect weaponry would look like in our hypothetical ideal predator. Such a creature would need an integrated arsenal capable of dealing with any type of prey, in any situation, with perfect efficiency and minimal energy waste. It would need bone-crushing mechanical force for armored prey, precision chemical injection systems for biological warfare, electrical discharge capabilities for aquatic environments, and sonic weapons for long-range target disruption. But perhaps more importantly than having multiple weapon systems, the perfect predator would need the intelligence to select exactly the right weapon for each specific situation. There's no evolutionary advantage in using maximum force when minimum force would accomplish the same objective. Biological energy is far too precious to waste on unnecessary overkill, and the perfect predator would need flawless judgment about when and how to deploy each weapon in its arsenal. The integration challenges are mind-boggling. How do you design a biological system that can bite with bone-crushing force while simultaneously injecting precision doses of customized toxins? How do you incorporate high-voltage electrical discharge capabilities without short-circuiting your own nervous system? How do you generate focused sonic attacks powerful enough to stun prey without deafening yourself in the process? The scale of biological engineering required approaches the limits of what organic chemistry and physics might allow. Yet evolution has already solved pieces of this puzzle separately in different species, suggesting that integration might be theoretically possible given enough time and evolutionary pressure. As you leave that weapons museum, appreciating the centuries of human innovation on display, you might find yourself thinking that evolution has been conducting its own military research and development program for far longer than our species has existed, with a budget measured in geological time and testing grounds that span the entire planet. Next, we'll explore how intelligence and strategy have transformed simple predators into sophisticated hunters capable of using tools, solving problems, and even deceiving their prey. You sit on a research vessel in the Pacific Ocean, watching through binoculars as a sea otter floats on its back about 50 meters away. The small mammal has a sea urchin balanced on its chest and is methodically striking it with a flat rock, producing a rhythmic tapping sound that carries across the water. After a dozen precise hits, The urchin's shell cracks open and the otter begins extracting the meat with surgical precision. You've just witnessed something that would have been considered impossible not too long ago. A wild animal using a tool with the skill and purpose that was once thought to be uniquely human. But this otter represents just the tip of an intellectual iceberg that has been developing in the natural world for millions of years. Intelligence has transformed predation from a simple matter of physical capabilities into something approaching strategic warfare. The cognitive revolution in hunting has produced predators that can use tools, solve complex problems, engage in elaborate deception, and even pass sophisticated techniques from one generation to the next through what can only be called culture. When intelligence enters the predation equation, the rules of the game change completely. Consider what tool use actually means in evolutionary terms. That sea otter didn't just pick up a rock randomly, it selected a stone of specific size, weight, and hardness for the task at hand. The otter understands the relationship between force, surface area, and shell strength. It's applying principles of physics that human engineers use when designing industrial equipment. Some otters even keep favorite rocks tucked under their armpits while diving, essentially maintaining a personal toolkit. But tool use among predators extends far beyond simple hammering. Chimpanzees have been observed fashioning spears from branches, sharpening the tips with their teeth, and using them to hunt bush babies hiding in tree hollows. The chimps modify their tools based on the specific requirements of each hunting situation: longer spears for deeper holes, sharper points for tougher bark. They're essentially running a custom weapons manufacturing operation using nothing but their intelligence and opposable thumbs. Egyptian vultures use rocks as projectiles to crack open ostrich eggs. But they don't just throw random stones. They select rocks of optimal size and weight, carry them considerable distances to egg sites, and adjust their throwing technique based on wind conditions and target distance. The vultures are performing ballistic calculations that would challenge a medieval siege engineer. If our galaxy were compressed to the size of a dinner plate, the nearest major galaxy would be about 30 feet away. The cognitive leaps required for tool use represent similar scales of intellectual advancement, transforming creatures from simple biological machines into problem-solving entities capable of manipulating their environment. Problem-solving in the wild has reached levels of sophistication that continually surprise researchers. Crows in New Caledonia craft hooks from twigs to extract insects from crevices, but they don't just make any hook, they create different designs for different tasks. They've developed a toolkit of specialized instruments: straight probes for simple extraction, hooked tools for complicated retrieval, and even compound tools that combine multiple elements for particularly challenging problems. The cognitive demands are remarkable. The crow must visualize the hidden insect, assess the geometry of the crevice, select appropriate raw materials, modify those materials into a functional tool, and then manipulate the tool with precision while receiving only indirect feedback about its effectiveness. It's like performing surgery by feel alone, using instruments you've made yourself from materials you found in the forest. Ravens have been observed engaging in what can only be described as play-based learning, sliding down snow-covered roofs repeatedly with no apparent purpose other than enjoyment. But this seemingly frivolous behavior actually serves as training for complex aerial maneuvers used in hunting and territorial defense. The ravens are essentially running flight simulations, practicing advanced techniques in a low-risk environment. Deception represents perhaps the most sophisticated form of predatory intelligence. Some spider species create fake prey signals to lure other spiders into their webs, essentially using biological false advertising to trick competitors into becoming meals. The deceptive spider must understand not only its own hunting signals, but also the sensory capabilities and behavioral responses of other spider species. Alligator snapping turtles have evolved a remarkable form of deception that borders on performance art. They lie motionless underwater with their mouths open, wiggling a small pink appendage on their tongues that perfectly mimics a worm. Fish attracted to the apparent meal swim directly into the turtle's mouth, never realizing they've fallen for an elaborate ruse. The turtle is essentially operating a biological restaurant with a menu that consists of itself. But perhaps the most impressive cognitive achievement among predators is cultural transmission, the passing of learned behaviors from one generation to the next. Orca populations have developed distinct hunting cultures that are passed down through family groups like traditions. Southern resident orcas specialize in salmon hunting techniques that are completely different from the seal hunting methods used by transient orcas, even though both populations live in the same waters and are genetically similar. These cultural differences are so pronounced that researchers can identify orca populations by their hunting strategies alone. Some groups have learned to beach themselves temporarily to catch seals on shorelines, a technique so dangerous it requires years of training and practice. Young orcas spend their early years apprenticing with experienced hunters, learning not just what to hunt, but how to coordinate complex group maneuvers that require split-second timing and perfect communication. The scale of cognitive sophistication required for cultural transmission is almost incomprehensible. The experienced hunters must be able to demonstrate techniques, the young must be capable of observation and imitation, and the entire group must maintain behavioral traditions across multiple generations. It's like having universities in the ocean, where knowledge is preserved and expanded over centuries. Dolphins have taken this concept even further, developing what researchers call sponging behavior in Shark Bay, Australia. Certain dolphins have learned to use marine sponges as tools to protect their noses while foraging in rocky areas. But here's the remarkable part. This technique is passed almost exclusively from mothers to daughters, creating distinct lineages of tool-using dolphins that can be traced back through multiple generations. The cognitive requirements for a hypothetical perfect predator would be staggering. It would need the problem-solving abilities of a crow, the deceptive capabilities of a snapping turtle, the cultural transmission skills of an orca, and the tool-making abilities of a chimpanzee, all integrated into a single cognitive system capable of applying the right intellectual approach to each hunting situation. Such a creature would need to understand not just its own capabilities, but the psychology and behavior patterns of numerous prey species. It would need to predict how prey would react to different hunting strategies, adjust its approach based on environmental conditions, and even plan multiple moves ahead, like a chess grandmaster. The perfect predator would also need the ability to learn continuously throughout its lifetime, adapting to new prey species, environmental changes, and the evolving defensive strategies of its targets. It would need a memory system capable of storing vast amounts of tactical information and the analytical capability to apply past experiences to novel situations. As you watch that sea otter finally finish its meal and dive beneath the surface, tools still clutched in its paws, you might marvel at the intellectual journey that brought a marine mammal to the point of using technology for hunting. But you might also wonder what other cognitive revolutions are taking place in the natural world, unseen and unrecognized. Next, we'll journey back 540 million years to meet Earth's first super predators, creatures so alien in design they seem like monsters from another planet. You walk through the fossil halls of a natural history museum, past displays of familiar creatures, trilobites with their compound eyes, ancient fish with primitive jaws, early arthropods that look like oversized pillbugs. Then you turn a corner and stop dead in your tracks before a reconstruction that looks like something from a science fiction movie. It's labelled Anomalocaris, and the placard informs you that this 6-foot-long creature lived 540 million years ago, making it one of Earth's first apex predators. With its massive grasping arms, compound eyes the size of dinner plates, and undulating fins that ripple along its sides, it looks like an alien designed specifically for hunting in an underwater world that no longer exists. This is our window into the Cambrian explosion, a period roughly 540 million years ago, when life on Earth suddenly became complicated in ways that fundamentally changed the rules of existence. Before the Cambrian, life was mostly microscopic, simple and peaceful. Then, in a geological instant that lasted only about 25 million years, evolution invented predation, vision, armor, speed, and complexity all at once. It was like the universe's first arms race, and the creatures that emerged from it were unlike anything that had existed before or has existed since. If you could somehow compress Earth's entire history into a single year, complex multicellular life wouldn't appear until mid-November, and the Cambrian explosion would happen in just the first few days of December. But those few days produced innovations that still define how life works on our planet today. Anomalocaris represents the pinnacle of Cambrian predatory innovation. At 6 feet long in a world where most creatures were smaller than your thumb, it was essentially a kaiju monster stalking through ancient seas. Its name means abnormal shrimp, which gives you some idea of how baffled scientists were when they first discovered its remains. Early paleontologists actually thought they had found 3 different creatures. The grasping arms were classified as one species, the body as another, and the circular mouthparts as a third. It took decades to realize they were looking at pieces of a single, unprecedented predator. The engineering of Anomalocaris is remarkable even by modern standards. Its compound eyes contained over 16,000 individual lenses, giving it vision capabilities that rivals or exceeds most modern arthropods. Each eye was about 9 inches across. Imagine having dinner plates for eyes, each one capable of detecting movement, estimating distance, and tracking multiple targets simultaneously. In a world that had just invented vision, Anomalocaris essentially showed up with high-definition surveillance equipment. Its grasping arms were mechanical marvels, flexible enough to bend and twist, yet strong enough to capture struggling prey. The arms were covered with sharp spines that pointed inward, creating a biological lobster trap that could grab creatures and guide them toward the creature's circular mouth. The mouth itself was a ring of overlapping plates that could contract like a camera iris, crushing prey with precise control. But Anomalocaris wasn't the only monster stalking Cambrian seas. Opabinia, though smaller at only about 3 inches long, might have been even stranger. It had 5 mushroom-shaped eyes on top of its head, and a long proboscis ending in a claw-like grabber. The creature looked like someone had crossed a vacuum cleaner with a horseshoe crab and given it the grabbing appendage of a carnival claw machine. The proboscis could extend and retract with remarkable precision, allowing Opabinia to snatch small prey from crevices and soft sediments. Its 5 eyes gave it panoramic vision that could monitor threats from multiple directions while hunting. In many ways, Opabinia pioneered the concept of precision hunting, using specialized appendages to capture specific prey rather than simply overpowering everything in its path. The scale of innovation during this period is almost incomprehensible. Evolution essentially invented the concept of predation from scratch, along with all the technologies necessary to make it work. Before the Cambrian, the most violent thing that happened in the ocean was one bacterium absorbing another. Suddenly, the seas were filled with creatures actively hunting, chasing, ambushing, and devouring each other using sophisticated biological weapons that had never existed before. Hallucigenia, despite its name, was very real and represents another approach to Cambrian predation. This bizarre creature walked on 7 pairs of spiny legs, while a row of defensive spikes protected its back. But what made Hallucigenia truly remarkable was its head, which featured a ring of teeth surrounding a throat lined with additional rows of smaller teeth. It was essentially a walking mouth with legs, designed to process prey through multiple stages of mechanical breakdown. The creature's hunting strategy was completely different from modern predators. Instead of chasing prey, Hallucigenia appears to have been a slow-moving processor that engulfed whatever it encountered and ground it down through multiple layers of dental equipment. It's like evolution was experimenting with biological food processors, creating creatures that could extract maximum nutrition from every meal. Wiwaxia represents yet another experimental approach to Cambrian life. This creature was covered in scale-like armor and defensive spines, but it also had rows of feeding structures that could scrape organisms off surfaces or filter nutrients from water. It demonstrates how the line between predator and prey was still being defined during this period. Wiwaxia could defend itself like armor-plated tank, but it could also actively harvest other organisms for food. The diversity of body plans during the Cambrian is staggering. Evolution was essentially running multiple experiments simultaneously, testing every conceivable approach to predation and defense. Some experiments, like Anomalocaris, were incredibly successful for millions of years before eventually going extinct. Others, like the basic arthropod body plan, became so successful they're still with us today in the form of insects, crustaceans, and spiders. If our solar system was scaled down so that the sun was the size of a basketball, Earth would be a small marble about 80 feet away. The evolutionary experimentation of the Cambrian operated on similarly vast scales of biological possibility, exploring design space that will never be explored again. But here's what makes the Cambrian monsters truly remarkable. They invented predation without any evolutionary precedent to guide them. Modern predators can build on 540 million years of evolutionary refinement. Cambrian predators had to invent everything from scratch: how to see prey, how to catch it, how to kill it, how to avoid becoming prey themselves. They were writing the first chapters of the predator-prey arms race that still continues today. The extinction of most Cambrian predators raises fascinating questions about what makes a perfect predator. Many of these creatures were incredibly successful in their time, dominating their ecosystems for millions of years. Yet they all eventually disappeared, replaced by more modern body plans that proved more adaptable to changing conditions. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about Cambrian predators is how alien they seem compared to modern life. Anomalocaris, Opabinia, and Hallucigenia represent evolutionary experiments that were never repeated. They show us that life could have taken completely different paths, producing predators that operate on principles we can barely understand. The Cambrian explosion demonstrates that evolution is capable of dramatic innovation when the right conditions arise. In a relatively brief period, life went from simple and peaceful to complex and predatory, setting the stage for all subsequent evolutionary arms races. As you walk away from that anomalocaris display, you might find yourself wondering what other evolutionary explosions might be possible, and whether intelligence represents the beginning of another fundamental transformation in how predation works on Earth. Next, we'll fast forward to the present day to meet the apex predators that currently rule our planet, and discover how 540 million years of evolutionary refinement has produced hunters of incredible sophistication. You stand on a research vessel's deck in the Pacific Ocean, watching as a marine biologist lowers a specially designed shark cage into the crystalline water below. The cage seems impossibly small for the creature it's designed to protect you from, a great white shark that could be anywhere in the deep blue surrounding your boat. As you watch the cage disappear beneath the surface, you're struck by a peculiar thought. Somewhere in these waters swims a predator so perfectly engineered for hunting that it has remained essentially unchanged for 20 million years. While continents have drifted, ice ages have come and gone, and countless species have evolved and disappeared. The great white shark has needed no improvements to its design. After 540 million years of evolutionary experimentation, our planet has produced a collection of apex predators that represent the pinnacle of hunting efficiency in their respective environments. These modern masters haven't achieved perfection through accident or luck. They're the products of millions of years of refinement, each one a solution to specific environmental challenges that pushes the boundaries of what's biologically possible. The great white shark embodies aquatic predatory perfection in ways that continue to amaze marine biologists. Its body is a masterpiece of hydrodynamic engineering, capable of bursting from the depths at speeds exceeding 25 miles per hour to launch its 3-ton bulk completely out of the water. The shark's cartilaginous skeleton provides flexibility and strength while remaining lighter than bone, and its skin is covered in tiny tooth-like scales called denticles that reduce drag and turbulence as it moves through water. But it's the great white's sensory array that truly sets it apart. The shark can detect electrical fields as weak as 0.5 billionth of a volt, sensitive enough to sense the heartbeat of a fish from several feet away. Its lateral line system feels pressure waves and water movements with extraordinary precision, essentially giving it the ability to feel objects moving through water at considerable distances. Combined with a sense of smell so acute it can detect a single drop of blood diluted in 25 gallons of water, the great white operates with environmental awareness that borders on omniscience. If our galaxy were compressed to the size of a dinner plate, the nearest major galaxy would be about 30 feet away. The sensory precision of a great white shark operates on similarly vast scales of sensitivity, detecting stimuli so faint they would be completely unnoticeable to most other creatures. In the Arctic, the polar bear represents terrestrial predatory excellence adapted to one of Earth's most challenging environments. These 1,000-pound hunters can smell seals beneath 3 feet of snow from over a mile away. Their sense of smell is roughly 7 times more sensitive than a bloodhound's, capable of detecting prey that's completely invisible and inaudible. A polar bear's hunting technique requires patience that would challenge a Zen master. They can wait motionless beside seal breathing holes for hours, then strike with lightning precision when a seal surfaces for air. The bear's physical adaptations for Arctic hunting are remarkable. Their feet work like snowshoes, distributing weight across soft snow and ice. The soles are covered with small bumps called papillae that provide traction on slippery surfaces. Their hollow hairs provide insulation while also helping with buoyancy during long swims between ice floes. Even their black skin absorbs maximum heat from scarce Arctic sunlight. But perhaps most impressive is the polar bear's ability to hunt in 3 dimensions. They're equally capable of stalking seals on ice, ambushing them underwater, or pursuing them through the complex network of breathing holes that honeycomb Arctic ice. It's like being a sniper, submarine captain, and mountain climber all at once. Orcas represent the ultimate fusion of intelligence and physical capability in marine predation. These 6-ton dolphins have developed hunting strategies so sophisticated that different populations have evolved distinct cultural techniques passed down through generations. Resident orcas specialize in fish hunting, using echolocation so precise they can distinguish between different salmon species, while transient orcas have mastered the art of marine mammal hunting, using coordinated pack strategies that would impress military strategists. The physical capabilities of orcas are staggering. They can generate enough force with their tail flukes to stun prey through water pressure alone. Some populations have learned to intentionally beach themselves to catch seals on shorelines, then use powerful tail movements to slide back into the water. Others create waves large enough to wash seals off ice floes, demonstrating an understanding of physics that borders on engineering. But it's their intelligence that truly sets orcas apart. They engage in elaborate play that serves as training for complex hunting maneuvers. They communicate using dialect-specific calls that allow pod coordination over vast distances. They even engage in what can only be described as teaching, with experienced hunters demonstrating techniques to younger pod members through repetition and patience. In tropical and subtropical waters around the world, saltwater crocodiles represent predatory patience perfected over 200 million years. These living fossils can remain motionless for hours with only their eyes and nostrils above water, looking like floating logs until prey comes within striking distance. When they attack, they generate bite forces exceeding 3,700 pounds per square inch, enough to crush the skull of a Cape buffalo. The saltwater crocodile's hunting strategy is based on perfect ambush execution. They position themselves along game trails where animals come to drink, using their extraordinary patience to wait for optimal opportunities. Their attack is an explosion of violence that can be over in seconds, followed by the famous death roll that disorients prey while drowning it. What makes saltwater crocodiles remarkable is their versatility. Juveniles hunt insects and small fish. Adults can take down water buffalo. They're equally capable of hunting in saltwater, freshwater, and even on land. They represent a predatory design so successful it has remained essentially unchanged since the age of dinosaurs. The scale of evolutionary refinement represented by these apex predators is almost incomprehensible. Each one embodies millions of years of natural selection, fine-tuning every aspect of their biology for hunting success in specific environments. The great white's electroreception, the polar bear's scent detection, the orca's echolocation, the crocodile's bite force. These capabilities didn't emerge overnight, but were refined over countless generations. Yet despite their extraordinary adaptations, none of these predators achieves true universal hunting capability. The great white is helpless on land. The polar bear would struggle in tropical environments. Orcas are tied to aquatic environments. Saltwater crocodiles, despite their versatility, are still limited by their cold-blooded metabolism. Each apex predator represents optimization for specific environmental conditions and prey types. They're evolutionary specialists that excel in narrow niches rather than generalists capable of hunting anywhere. This specialization has made them incredibly successful in their chosen environments, but it also represents a fundamental limitation that prevents any of them from achieving the universal hunting capability we've been imagining. The question emerges, Could evolution ever produce a truly universal apex predator? Or does the physics of biological systems require the kind of specialization we see in modern hunters? Perhaps the answer lies not in individual creatures, but in something else entirely. As you watch that shark cage being hauled back to the surface, its occupant having safely observed one of nature's most perfect predators in its element, you might find yourself wondering whether the perfect predator we've been seeking might already exist, but in a form so familiar, we've overlooked it entirely. Next, we'll examine the dark side of predatory perfection by meeting the extinction champions, hunters so successful they disappeared along with their prey. You walk along a beach in South Carolina, occasionally stopping to examine interesting shells and sea glass scattered across the sand. Then your eye catches something unusual, a triangular black object about the size of your palm, serrated along the edges and surprisingly heavy for its size. You've just found a fossilized tooth from Carcharocles megalodon, a shark so enormous and so perfectly adapted for killing whales that it dominated Earth's oceans for over 15 million years, before vanishing completely 3.6 million years ago. Holding this ancient weapon in your hand, you're touching evidence of one of history's greatest evolutionary success stories that became an evolutionary dead end. The story of extinct predators teaches us a sobering lesson about the dangers of perfection. Throughout Earth's history, evolution has produced hunters so exquisitely adapted to their prey and environment that they achieved total dominance over their ecological niches. Yet many of these supremely successful predators are now gone, victims of their own specialization and the changing world around them. Megalodon represents perhaps the most extreme example of predatory success leading to extinction. These massive sharks grew up to 60 feet in length and weighed as much as 50 tons. Their bite force has been estimated at 182,000 pounds per square inch, roughly 10 times more powerful than a great white shark and strong enough to crush a small car. Their teeth, some as large as your hand, were self-sharpening biological blades perfectly designed for slicing through whale flesh and bone. If our solar system was scaled down so that Earth was the size of a marble, the nearest star would still be about 4 inches away. Megalodon's dominance over ancient oceans operated on similarly vast scales of biological supremacy, with virtually no creature capable of challenging its authority. For millions of years, Megalodon ruled an ocean filled with enormous whales that provided the massive caloric intake necessary to sustain such gigantic predators. The sharks were so successful that they spread throughout the world's warm oceans, becoming the ultimate apex predator in marine ecosystems from the Atlantic to the Pacific. But their very success contained the seeds of their destruction. As Earth's climate began cooling toward the end of the Pliocene epoch, ocean temperatures dropped and whale populations shifted toward polar waters where Megalodon couldn't follow. These massive sharks were so perfectly adapted to hunting large whales in warm waters that they couldn't adjust to the changing world around them. Smaller, more efficient sharks like the great white were better suited to the new conditions and gradually replaced their giant cousins. The cave bear of Europe presents another fascinating case of predatory perfection leading to extinction. These enormous bears, standing 11 feet tall on their hind legs, dominated European ecosystems for over 100,000 years. They were so successful that they carved out vast networks of caves throughout the continent, leaving behind bone deposits so extensive that entire cave systems are named after them. Cave bears were perfectly adapted to their environment, with massive jaws capable of crushing the bones of their prey, and digestive systems optimized for extracting maximum nutrition from both plant and animal matter. They were the ultimate omnivorous predators, capable of hunting large mammals while also subsisting on vegetation during lean times. Yet their very success made them vulnerable. Cave bears had become so large and metabolically demanding that they required enormous amounts of food to survive. When the last ice age brought rapid climate change and reduced food availability, these giant bears couldn't adapt quickly enough. Smaller, more efficient competitors like brown bears and humans were better suited to the changing landscape. The saber-toothed cats represent one of evolution's most dramatic predatory experiments. Smilodon fatalis, the most famous of these creatures, possessed canine teeth up to 7 inches long, daggers of bone and enamel perfectly designed for delivering killing bites to large prey. Their muscular necks and powerful jaw muscles could drive these sabers deep into the flesh of mastodons, giant ground sloths, and other megafauna that roamed the Americas. The engineering behind saber-tooth predation was remarkable. The cats couldn't bite with the same force as modern big cats because their elongated canines were more fragile. Instead, they evolved a completely different hunting strategy based on precision and leverage. They would use their powerful bodies to wrestle prey to the ground, then deliver a precisely aimed killing bite to the throat or belly, using their sabers like surgical instruments rather than brute force weapons. For hundreds of thousands of years, this strategy was incredibly successful. Saber-toothed cats were among North America's most abundant large predators, with fossil evidence suggesting they were more common than modern lions are in Africa today, but their specialization for hunting megafauna made them vulnerable when their prey began disappearing at the end of the last ice age. The extinction of American megafauna around 11,000 years ago, whether caused by climate change, human hunting, or a combination of factors, left saber-toothed cats without the large prey they were designed to hunt. Unlike more generalized predators that could adapt to hunting smaller animals, the saber-toothed cats were locked into a predatory strategy that no longer worked in the changing world. The giant, short-faced bear of North America, Arctodus simus, was perhaps the most imposing predator ever to walk the continent. Standing 12 feet tall on its hind legs and weighing up to 1,500 pounds, it was built like a massive racing greyhound, long-legged, lean, and capable of running down prey across open landscapes. Its elongated skull housed jaws powerful enough to crush bison bones, and its long legs allowed it to cover ground at speeds that would terrify any prey animal. These bears were so successful that they may have delayed human colonization of North America by thousands of years. Archaeological evidence suggests that early human populations avoided areas where short-faced bears were common, unable to compete with such formidable predators for resources and territory. Yet the short-faced bear's very dominance made it vulnerable to environmental change. Its large size required enormous amounts of food, and its specialized hunting adaptations made it dependent on the open grasslands and abundant megafauna of the Pleistocene. When forests expanded and large prey animals disappeared, the short-faced bear couldn't adapt to the new conditions. The pattern that emerges from these extinction stories is both fascinating and troubling. Evolution tends to reward specialization, creating predators that are incredibly efficient at exploiting specific ecological niches. But this same specialization can become a trap when environmental conditions change rapidly. Modern conservation biology recognizes this pattern in contemporary predators. Highly specialized hunters like polar bears, snow leopards, and pandas are among the most vulnerable species on Earth, precisely because their evolutionary success has locked them into narrow ecological requirements that are increasingly difficult to meet in a rapidly changing world. The scale of these ancient extinctions is staggering. During the end Pleistocene extinction event around 11,000 years ago, North America lost 70% of its large mammal species. South America lost 80%. Australia, which had experienced human arrival much earlier, lost 90% of its megafauna over a longer time period. Each of these extinction events eliminated not just individual species, but entire categories of predatory excellence that had taken millions of years to evolve. The world lost predatory strategies and hunting innovations that will never be repeated, representing evolutionary experiments that reached dead ends despite their remarkable success. If you could somehow resurrect Megalodon and place it in today's oceans, it would probably starve. The whales it was designed to hunt have evolved different behaviors and migration patterns. Ocean temperatures and chemistry have changed. The perfect predator of 5 million years ago would be poorly adapted to the modern world. This raises profound questions about the nature of evolutionary success and the future of predation on Earth. Is specialization always a trap? Or can predators evolve the flexibility needed to survive in rapidly changing environments? As you place that Megalodon tooth back on the beach where you found it, you might wonder whether the perfect predator we've been seeking would need to be perfect, not just at hunting, but at adapting to a world that never stops changing. Next, we'll explore how cooperation has multiplied individual hunting capabilities, creating superorganism predators that hunt with collective intelligence. You sit in a wildlife observation blind in Yellowstone National Park, watching through binoculars as a pack of 8 wolves spreads out across a meadow where a herd of elk is grazing. At first glance, the wolves seem to be wandering randomly, but as you watch more carefully, you begin to notice the subtle coordination happening across hundreds of yards of terrain. 2 wolves circle wide to the left, 3 position themselves along a ridgeline, and the remaining 3 begin a slow, almost casual approach toward the elk herd. What you're witnessing isn't random hunting. It's a complex military operation being executed without verbal communication, GPS coordinates, or battle plans, yet with a level of tactical sophistication that would impress any army strategist. Cooperative hunting represents one of evolution's most remarkable innovations in predation. When individual hunters join forces, the resulting capabilities can exceed the simple sum of their parts, creating superorganism predators that can tackle prey many times their individual size and overcome defensive strategies that would defeat any single attacker. The mathematics of pack hunting are fascinating when you think about them. A lone wolf weighing 80 pounds has virtually no chance of successfully hunting a 500-pound elk. The size differential is simply too great, and the elk's powerful hooves can easily injure or kill a solitary attacker. But 8 wolves working together don't just have 8 times the hunting power. Their coordination multiplies their effectiveness exponentially. They can surround prey, cutting off escape routes, while simultaneously attacking from multiple directions to prevent effective defense. Wolf-pack coordination operates on principles that would be familiar to any military tactician. The pack typically identifies the weakest or most vulnerable prey animal, then works to separate it from the protective herd. Some wolves serve as drivers, pushing the herd toward positions where other pack members can attack most effectively. Others act as blockers, preventing escape toward cover or favorable terrain. The actual kill is often accomplished by wolves specifically positioned for that purpose, while others maintain the tactical situation by preventing interference from other herd members. The communication systems that enable this coordination are remarkably sophisticated. Wolves use a combination of body language, scent marking, and vocalizations that can convey complex tactical information across considerable distances. A wolf's ear position, tail carriage, and movement patterns can communicate its intentions to pack members hundreds of yards away. The famous wolf howl serves as long-distance coordination, allowing separated pack members to locate each other and potentially coordinate multi-stage hunts across vast territories. If our galaxy were compressed to the size of a dinner plate, the nearest major galaxy would be about 30 feet away. The coordination challenges facing pack hunters operate on similarly vast scales of space and time, requiring individuals to maintain tactical awareness across territories that can span dozens of square miles. Lions have evolved a different approach to cooperative hunting that takes advantage of their social structure and physical capabilities. Pride hunting is typically led by the females, who are smaller and more agile than males, but also more numerous. A typical hunt involves several lionesses working together to surround and ambush prey, often using terrain features like ravines or dense vegetation to maximize their advantage. The coordination in lion prides is particularly impressive because it often involves hunting in low-light conditions where visual communication is limited. Lionesses must rely on subtle sound cues and an intimate knowledge of each other's hunting preferences and capabilities. Experienced hunters often take leadership roles, positioning themselves and their pride mates based on their understanding of prey behavior and local terrain. But perhaps most remarkably, lion prides demonstrate role specialization that approaches human-level division of labor. Some lionesses excel at driving prey toward ambush positions. Others are particularly skilled at the final takedown. Still others specialize in cutting off escape routes or preventing other pride members from interfering with the hunt. This specialization allows the pride to tackle prey as large as Cape buffalo, animals that outweigh individual lionesses by a factor of 5 or more. Orcas represent the pinnacle of marine cooperative hunting, with strategies so sophisticated they're passed down through generations like cultural traditions. Different orca populations have developed completely different hunting techniques based on their local prey and environmental conditions. Resident orcas in the Pacific Northwest have perfected coordinated salmon fishing techniques that involve multiple pod members working together to herd fish into concentrated schools where they can be captured more efficiently. Transient orcas have developed even more dramatic cooperative strategies for hunting marine mammals. They coordinate attacks on much larger whales using tactics that involve multiple pod members taking specific roles. Some orcas work to exhaust the prey by preventing it from surfacing to breathe. Others position themselves to deliver killing bites to vital areas. Still others serve as guards, preventing the prey from escaping to shallow water where the orca's size would become a disadvantage. The intelligence required for these coordinated hunts is staggering. Individual orcas must not only understand their own role in the hunt, but also predict the actions of their podmates and adjust their behavior accordingly. They must communicate complex tactical information using a sophisticated system of clicks, whistles, and body language. They must also demonstrate remarkable patience, sometimes coordinating hunts that last for hours and cover many miles of ocean. Army ants represent perhaps the most extreme example of cooperative hunting, creating superorganisms that function more like single predatory entities than collections of individuals. A colony of army ants can contain over 1 million individuals working together with such perfect coordination that the entire colony behaves like a single massive predator flowing across the landscape. The scale of army ant operations is almost incomprehensible. A typical raid involves hundreds of thousands of ants forming living highways that can stretch for hundreds of yards. These highways function as both transportation networks and communication systems, allowing the colony to coordinate attacks across vast areas while maintaining perfect tactical unity. Individual army ants are tiny and relatively helpless, but the colony as a whole can overwhelm prey thousands of times larger than any individual ant. They accomplish this through sheer numbers and perfect coordination. The colony can surround and immobilize creatures as large as lizards or small mammals, then dismember them efficiently using specialized worker castes equipped for different aspects of the killing and processing operation. The communication system that enables army ant coordination operates through chemical signals so sophisticated they amount to a biological internet. Trail pheromones mark successful hunting routes and can be modified in real time to redirect the colony's efforts toward more productive areas. Alarm pheromones can instantly mobilize defensive responses across the entire colony. Food marking chemicals can identify and prioritize the most valuable targets. Harris hawks demonstrate another fascinating approach to cooperative hunting that involves sophisticated role specialization and tactical planning. These birds hunt in coordinated groups where individual hawks take specific roles. Some serve as drivers, flushing prey from cover, while others position themselves along likely escape routes for ambush attacks. The precision required for Harris hawk cooperation is remarkable because it involves three-dimensional coordination across terrain with complex vertical elements. The hawks must predict not only where ground-dwelling prey will run, but also which trees, rocks, or bushes they might use for cover. Successful hunts require split-second timing and perfect spatial awareness from all participants. What makes cooperative hunting truly remarkable is how it solves problems that would be impossible for individual predators. Pack hunters can tackle prey much larger than themselves, overwhelm sophisticated defensive strategies, and exploit resources that would be unavailable to solitary hunters. They can also specialize their skills within the group, developing expertise in specific aspects of hunting that makes the entire team more effective. The perfect predator we've been imagining would almost certainly need to be a cooperative hunter. No individual creature, no matter how perfectly designed, could match the versatility and power of multiple predators working together with perfect coordination and communication. As you watch those Yellowstone wolves finally make their move, surrounding and bringing down their elk target through flawless tactical execution, you might find yourself wondering whether cooperation represents the ultimate predatory innovation, or whether there might be an even more effective approach. Next, we'll explore how some predators have achieved the ultimate hunting advantage by mastering multiple environments simultaneously. You stand on a rocky cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean, watching a brown pelican soar effortlessly along the coastline, about 30 feet above the waves. Suddenly, the bird folds its wings and plunges headfirst into the water with remarkable precision, disappearing beneath the surface in a splash of white foam. Seconds later, it emerges with a fish struggling in its expandable throat pouch, then takes flight again as if the transition between air and water were the most natural thing in the world. You've just witnessed something relatively rare in nature, a predator that has mastered hunting in multiple environments, seamlessly transitioning between the fundamentally different challenges of aerial and aquatic predation. Most predators are specialists, perfectly adapted to hunting in one specific environment using one particular strategy. But a few remarkable creatures have evolved the ability to hunt effectively across multiple domains, conquering the unique challenges presented by air, water, and land. These environmental generalists face engineering problems that push biological systems to their limits, requiring solutions that seem to defy the normal constraints of evolutionary design. The pelican you just observed represents one approach to multi-environmental hunting. These birds have evolved bodies that function efficiently both in flight and underwater. Their bones are filled with air pockets that provide buoyancy for surface swimming, while also reducing weight for efficient flight. Their expandable throat pouches can hold up to 3 gallons of water and fish, functioning like biological fishing nets that can be deployed instantly during underwater dives. But the engineering challenges of dive hunting from flight are enormous. When a pelican hits the water at 40 miles per hour, it experiences forces that would seriously injure most birds. Pelicans have evolved specialized air sacs throughout their bodies that cushion the impact, plus reinforced skulls and necks that can withstand the tremendous deceleration. Their eyes are positioned to provide accurate depth perception while flying, yet can also function underwater, where light refraction changes everything. The brown pelican's hunting strategy requires mastering physics in both air and water. In flight, they must calculate wind speed, target movement, and dive angle, while maintaining perfect aerodynamic control. Once underwater, they're operating in a medium nearly 800 times denser than air, where their flight adaptations become hindrances and their underwater modifications take over. Seals and sea lions represent a different solution to multi-environmental hunting. These marine mammals have evolved bodies that work reasonably well both underwater and on land, though they excel in neither environment the way true specialists do. Their streamlined bodies and powerful flippers make them efficient underwater hunters, capable of pursuing fish, squid, and other marine prey with remarkable agility. But seals must also be capable of terrestrial locomotion for breeding, nursing, and avoiding aquatic predators. On land, their flipper-based locomotion is awkward compared to land mammals, but it's sufficient for their needs. Underwater, their streamlined bodies can't match the efficiency of sharks or dolphins, but they're effective enough to make them successful marine predators. If our solar system was scaled down so that the sun was the size of a basketball, Earth would be a marble about 80 feet away. The engineering challenges facing multi-environmental predators operate on similarly vast scales of biological compromise, requiring solutions that balance competing demands across fundamentally different physical environments. Polar bears represent perhaps the most impressive example of terrestrial aquatic hunting mastery. These massive predators are equally capable of hunting on sea ice, in open water, and on land. Their dense fur provides insulation in Arctic air, but becomes waterlogged during swimming. Their large paws work as snowshoes on ice, but also function as effective paddles in water. Polar bears can swim for hours or even days, covering distances exceeding 400 miles in search of prey. Their hunting strategies must adapt to whether they're stalking seals at breathing holes on solid ice, pursuing them underwater, or ambushing them on ice floes. Each environment requires different sensory capabilities, different movement patterns, and different energy expenditure calculations. The metabolic challenges alone are staggering. Swimming in near-freezing water requires enormous energy expenditure, yet polar bears must maintain enough reserves to hunt successfully once they reach their destination. They've evolved the ability to adjust their metabolic rate based on hunting conditions, essentially shifting between high-performance and energy conservation modes as circumstances require. Some sharks have evolved limited air-breathing capabilities that allow them to expand their hunting range into extremely shallow water and even onto tidal flats. Epaulet sharks can survive out of water for over an hour, using a form of anaerobic metabolism that lets them hunt in tide pools and mangrove shallows where other sharks can't venture. These sharks represent an early experiment in amphibious predation. They can't truly hunt on land, but their ability to survive temporary air exposure gives them access to prey in environments that are inaccessible to purely aquatic predators. It's like evolution testing the boundaries of what's possible for marine predators. Crocodilians, despite being primarily aquatic predators, are surprisingly capable terrestrial hunters when the situation demands it. Large saltwater crocodiles have been observed galloping across land at speeds exceeding 15 miles per hour when pursuing prey or defending territory. Their hunting strategy seamlessly integrates aquatic ambush tactics with terrestrial pursuit capabilities. The engineering required for crocodilian environmental flexibility is remarkable. Their bodies are optimized for aquatic stealth and power, with eyes, nostrils, and ears positioned to function while most of the animal remains submerged. Yet the same body plan allows for surprisingly effective terrestrial locomotion when necessary. Their tail, perfectly designed for underwater propulsion, also serves as a weapon and balancing aid during land-based activities. Diving birds like cormorants and gannets have pushed underwater hunting capabilities to extremes that rival many marine specialists. Gannets can dive from heights exceeding 100 feet, hitting the water at speeds over 60 miles per hour. Their skulls are reinforced to withstand these impacts, and their eyes can focus properly both in air and underwater, despite the dramatic differences in light refraction. The sensory challenges facing diving birds are particularly complex. They must spot prey from considerable height while flying, track its movement during a high-speed dive, maintain visual contact during water entry, and continue pursuit underwater, where visibility and maneuverability are completely different. It's like being a fighter pilot and submarine captain simultaneously. Army ants represent an interesting case of environmental flexibility on a smaller scale. These colonial insects can hunt effectively on the ground, in trees, and even in temporary water crossings created by linking their bodies together. Their ability to form living bridges, rafts, and ladders using their own bodies allows the colony to hunt in three-dimensional environments that would defeat most terrestrial predators. The ultimate challenge for multi-environmental predators is energy efficiency. Specialists can optimize every aspect of their biology for specific hunting conditions, but generalists must accept compromises that reduce their efficiency in all environments. A seal will never be as fast underwater as a shark or as agile on land as a wolf, but its ability to hunt in both environments provides advantages that can outweigh these limitations. The trade-offs become even more complex when you consider sensory systems. Eyes optimized for underwater vision don't work as well in air. Ears designed for airborne sound detection are less effective underwater. Multi-environmental predators must either accept reduced sensory performance in some environments or evolve complex systems that can adapt to different conditions. What would perfect environmental mastery look like? Our hypothetical ideal predator would need variable geometry body plans that could reconfigure for optimal performance in different environments. It would need sensory systems that could function across all environments without compromise. It would need metabolic flexibility that could maintain peak performance regardless of environmental demands. As you watch that pelican disappear over the horizon, probably heading toward its evening roost after a successful day of hunting across two fundamentally different environments, you might find yourself wondering whether true environmental mastery represents the final key to perfect predation. Next, we'll discover the answer to our original question through a revelation that might be closer to home than you ever imagined. You walk through a quiet neighborhood on an evening stroll, passing houses with warm lights glowing in their windows. In one yard, a family grills dinner on their patio while children play on a swing set. Next door, someone tends to a vegetable garden that's protected by a fence designed to keep out deer and rabbits. Across the street, a person loads camping gear into their car, preparing for a weekend hunting trip in the mountains. These ordinary suburban scenes might seem completely unrelated to our exploration of perfect predation, but you're actually looking at evidence of the most successful predator in Earth's history, one that has been hiding in plain sight throughout our entire journey. After traveling through 540 million years of evolutionary experimentation, examining sensory superpowers that border on the supernatural, investigating hunting strategies that would impress military tacticians, and meeting predators that dominated their worlds for millions of years, we arrive at a startling conclusion. The perfect predator isn't hiding in some remote corner of the natural world. It's been right in front of us all along, so familiar that we've overlooked it entirely. Humans are arguably the most successful predators Earth has ever produced. We possess every characteristic we've been exploring throughout our journey, often in combinations that no other species has achieved. We hunt in coordinated groups using sophisticated communication and strategic planning. We use tools not just for hunting, but for manufacturing better tools in an endless cycle of technological refinement. We've adapted to every environment on the planet, from Arctic ice to tropical, rainforests to ocean depths to mountain peaks. The scale of human predatory success is almost incomprehensible when you examine it objectively. We've driven megafauna to extinction on every continent we've colonized. Within 1,000 years of human arrival in Australia, 90% of large animal species disappeared. North America lost 70% of its megafauna within a few thousand years of human colonization. Madagascar, New Zealand, and countless islands experienced similar mass extinctions coinciding with human arrival. If our galaxy were compressed to the size of a dinner plate, the nearest major galaxy would be about 30 feet away. The impact of human predation on global ecosystems operates on similarly vast scales of biological influence, reshaping entire continents and fundamentally altering the course of evolution on Earth. Consider the tools we've developed for hunting. We started with simple spears and arrows, but unlike other tool-using predators, we didn't stop there. We created tools to make better tools, then tools to make those tools, in an exponential progression that has produced weapons capable of killing from distances measured in miles. A modern rifle can deliver lethal force with precision that would be impossible for any biological predator to achieve. But our tool use extends far beyond weapons. We've created vehicles that allow us to hunt in any environment. Boats for aquatic hunting, aircraft for aerial pursuit, all-terrain vehicles for terrestrial tracking. We've developed technologies that give us sensory capabilities exceeding those of any natural predator. Night vision equipment lets us hunt in complete darkness. Thermal imaging reveals prey by their heat signatures. GPS and radio communication allow coordinated hunting across vast distances. Our cooperative hunting strategies have evolved into complex social and economic systems that span the entire globe. Modern commercial fishing operations coordinate the efforts of thousands of people using satellite communication, sonar technology, and vessels the size of small cities. Agricultural systems represent a form of prey management where we control every aspect of our food sources' lives, from birth to harvest. The intelligence that enables human predatory success goes far beyond anything we've seen in other species. We can plan hunts that span years or decades. We can hunt creatures we've never seen in environments we've never visited, using knowledge passed down through books, videos, and formal education systems. We can analyze the behavior patterns of prey species scientifically, then develop hunting strategies based on detailed understanding of their biology and ecology. Perhaps most remarkably, we hunt with weapons that exist only in our imagination until we need them. We can conceive of a hunting tool, design it, manufacture it, and deploy it within remarkably short time periods. Other tool-using predators are limited to modifying natural objects they encounter. We create entirely new objects based on abstract principles and theoretical understanding. Our environmental mastery surpasses anything evolution has produced elsewhere. We hunt successfully in every terrestrial environment and most aquatic ones. We've extended our hunting range into environments that don't naturally support human life. Arctic regions, deep ocean trenches, high altitudes, using technology to overcome our biological limitations. We're the only predator that has conquered environments by changing them rather than adapting to them. The sensory capabilities we've developed through technology exceed those of any biological predator. Our detection range is essentially unlimited. We can track prey using satellite imagery from space. We can see in wavelengths from radio to X-ray. We can detect chemical signatures at concentrations that would be undetectable to biological senses. We can hear sounds across any frequency range and record them for later analysis. But perhaps the most unique aspect of human predation is our relationship with our prey. Unlike other predators, we don't just hunt. We manage entire ecosystems to optimize our hunting success. We've domesticated numerous species, essentially converting wild animals into prey that cooperates with its own harvest. We've created artificial environments designed specifically for prey production, from fish farms to cattle ranches to chicken operations that house millions of birds in controlled conditions. The mathematical sophistication of human hunting is staggering. We use computer models to predict prey movements, optimize hunting strategies, and maximize yield while minimizing effort. Commercial fishing fleets use algorithms that would challenge the world's best mathematicians to determine optimal fishing locations, times, and methods. Our hunting strategies incorporate weather patterns, seasonal migrations, reproductive cycles, and population dynamics in ways that no biological predator could match. Our cultural transmission of hunting knowledge surpasses anything seen in other species. We've developed formal education systems dedicated entirely to improving hunting efficiency. Universities offer degrees in wildlife management, marine biology, and agricultural science. We've created libraries containing millions of books about hunting strategies, prey behavior, and predatory techniques. Our hunting knowledge accumulates across generations in ways that create exponential improvements in efficiency. The scale of our predatory impact becomes clear when you consider that we've fundamentally altered the evolution of most large animal species on Earth. We've driven many species to extinction, forced others into protected reserves, and domesticated still others to the point where they're essentially different organisms from their wild ancestors. Yet for all our predatory success, we face the same fundamental challenge that defeated megalodon, cave bears, and saber-toothed cats. Our hunting efficiency has become so extreme that we're depleting the very ecosystems that sustain us. Overfishing has collapsed fish populations worldwide. Habitat destruction has eliminated the environments that support wild prey. Climate change, largely driven by human activity, is altering the ecological relationships that make hunting sustainable. If being too perfect at predation can lead to evolutionary dead ends, then humans might be approaching the same trap that eliminated Earth's previous super-predators. Our success at hunting and environmental modification has created global challenges that threaten the stability of the ecosystems we depend on. The question isn't whether humans are the perfect predator. The evidence for that is overwhelming. The question is whether we can develop the wisdom to use our predatory perfection responsibly, ensuring that our success doesn't ultimately lead to our own extinction. As you continue your evening walk, passing more evidence of human predatory success in every direction, you might find yourself with a new appreciation for both the remarkable achievement and the profound responsibility that comes with being Earth's ultimate hunter. In answering whether the perfect predator could exist, we've discovered it already does, and we are it. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of predation across deep time and vast scales of biological possibility. May your dreams tonight be filled with the wonder of evolution's endless creativity, and perhaps a gentle reminder that with great power comes the need for even greater wisdom.